Trayvon when this happened.
Sanford Police Department, line is being recorded to Sean.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood, and there's a real suspicious guy. This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something.
Okay, and this guy, is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He looks black.
Did you see what he was wearing?
Yeah, a dark hoodie, like a gray hoodie, and either jeans or sweatpants and white tennis shoes.
He said a man was following him, and I told him he should run.
He's here now. He was just staring.
Okay.
And now he's just staring at me. Something's wrong with him. Yeah. He's coming to check me out.
He said, I'm not going to run. I'm just going to put my hoodie on and walk faster.
He's got something in his hands. I don't know what his deal is. These assholes, they always get away. Shit, he's running.
He's running? Which way is he running?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Okay. Which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
My friend George was attacked by Trayvon Martin. His head was beat into the concrete. He had no choice but to use his weapon.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
He said he thought he had lost him, but then the man had him cornered. Then Trayvon said, why are you following me? And the man said, what are you doing around here? Then somebody pushed Trayvon because the head stitch just fell.
911, do you need police, fire, medical?
Maybe both. I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your...
It was a very emotional day in that courtroom Tuesday with some key turning points for the defense. We want to warn you, though, some of the images you're about to see are disturbing. It was too much for Tracy Martin and Sabrina Fulton. The parents of Trayvon Martin had to leave the courtroom, leaving jurors and the public to see this. The lifeless body of their 17-year-old son. Some images too graphic for TV. They were shown during the testimony from Sergeant Anthony Raimondo, the second Sanford police officer to arrive at the scene, who tried to perform CPR.
And were you able to get a pulse?
No, sir, I was not.
The state also called on police crime scene technician Diane Smith. Jurors saw the evidence she collected, like George Zimmerman's handgun, clothing, Skittles, and the fruit drink Martin was carrying. Smith told prosecutors she couldn't find any blood on the sidewalk where Zimmerman said the teen slept.
It's time now to clear the air and to compound the tragedy of Trayvon Martin. It feels as though some people are now trying to do to him in death what George Zimmerman apparently did to him in life, attributing to this young man a character and a personality that they could not possibly know. And yet they persist in imposing upon his slight young frame an identity that implies criminality, juvenile delinquency, and the all-round characteristics of a troublemaker. This is not only deeply offensive to his family, but also a gross form of character assassination upon a child, a dead child. Stories are now being carefully fed to certain sections of the media that Trayvon was suspended from school after his bag was found to contain marijuana residue, that he once wrote graffiti on school grounds. Wow! That he was part of a stolen jewellery investigation on school grounds that resulted in no charges. And, to top it all, the greatest act of social criminality for a kid of colour, that he may have worn gold teeth. Wow, call the police. Even if these petty incidents were true, what on earth do they have to do with the fact that George Zimmerman shot and killed him? But let's compare Trayvon Martin with the history of another man. Only this one committed some real offences, and all of them after his 17th birthday. When this individual was 20, he was arrested for disorderly conduct after he got drunk and stole a Christmas wreath from a hotel. So that's drunk, disorderly and theft. Charges were later dropped. When he was 26, he took out his 16-year-old brother on an underage drinking spree. He lost control of his car, hitting a garbage can, but continued driving. When he was 30, he was arrested and found guilty of driving under the influence of alcohol. His driving licence was suspended for 2 years, even though his friends tried to say that it was for just 30 days. Now, does this brief history make him a social wretch? A criminal with no regard for other road users, a drunk, a disgraceful influence upon young people, including his own 16-year-old brother? What do you call him? Scum of the earth? Hoodlum? Criminal? In fact, America ended up calling him the 43rd President of the United States, George W. Bush. But that's not what they're calling Trayvon Martin. Instead, the brief lifestyle of this young man is now on trial. There's now a full-scale character assassination, suggesting that Trayvon Martin deserved his fate, that he even provoked his own death. But while you may be tempted to divert your attention away from what really happened, here are the only 3 facts that really matter. First, a man with a gun chose to pursue an unarmed teenager who'd done nothing wrong. Second, the man with the gun chose to initiate a confrontation with the teenager after he was advised not to. Third, as a result of the confrontation, the man with the gun shot the teenager to death. And when you focus on the facts, it's not the colour of his teeth that keep coming back to haunt you. It's the colour of his skin.
Dozens of shootings once again claimed the lives of too many innocent people all across the U.S. As seems to be a regular occurrence in urban America, deadly shootings fill a constant news stream in places like Chicago, New Orleans, and other major U.S. cities. But there was one story in particular that garnered more anger and outrage than usual: the death of 18-year-old Michael Brown of St. Louis, Missouri. See, according to eyewitness accounts, Brown was walking down the street with a friend when an officer in a patrol car approached the 2 teens. Shots broke out following a verbal confrontation, and moments later, Michael Brown lay dead, unarmed, in the middle of the street. A witness to the event recalled that, quote, "They shot him and he fell. He put his arms up to let them know he was compliant and that he was unarmed, and they shot him twice more and he fell to the ground and died." This photograph showing Brown's lifeless body lying face down in a pool of blood has since gone viral. Not only because officers didn't even bother to cover the teen with a sheet, but left him in the middle of the road for as many as 4 hours in plain sight of neighbors and onlookers. Residents, however, didn't take quietly to the matter and quickly mobilized into protests over the shooting, calling for the, quote, "killer cops to go." The protests continued over the weekend and grew into a massive crowd on Sunday night following a vigil for the slayed teenager. Police responded by sending an estimated 100 police cars to the scene, which is apparently the common response these days when citizens are collectively calling for accountability. Guys, this case reflects a very real problem in America when it comes to race issues. The fact that in 2014, police will instantly associate blackness with criminality. And much of the media is doing nothing more than perpetuating that same ridiculous stereotype. Check this out. After the shooting, news outlets were airing photographs of Brown wearing his high school cap and gown, remarking that he was only days away from starting his first semester in college. But by the time more outlets picked up the story, this photo was circulating around, showing Brown in a sports jersey and suggesting that the boy might have been a gangbanger. Unsurprisingly, in response to this blatant race baiting that the news media uses to drive their narrative, the Twitter community came up with the hashtag #IfTheyGunnedMeDown, posting pictures of themselves on social media and asking which picture the news media would likely use if they were gunned down by police. In this tweet, Ben Valence asked if the media would portray her as a gangbanger or a classy lady. And here, a user posts a photo of himself in a U.S. Army uniform alongside a selfie of him holding a toy gun, asking if the media would use the pic on the left or the one on the right if he were gunned down. The point these hashtag activists are making is that the court of public opinion is driven by how the media chooses to frame the story. Now, every week on this show, we highlight instances of how minorities are disproportionately impacted by police violence in America, and as well as the stereotypes that end up spinning their stories away from the truth. Whether it be Trayvon Martin wearing a hoodie or Michael Brown dropping a peace sign, this is racial profiling at its worst. And when it comes to police violence, we should be disgusted at the pace with which these crimes are committed. According to the Malcolm X grassroots movement, an African-American person is killed by police, security guards, or armed vigilantes every 28 hours in America. Keep in mind that these are often police officers killing members of the very communities they're sworn to protect. But look, at the end of the day, you can blame police tactics that rely on racial profiling, or you can blame the media, but until we take action ourselves, this will continue to be the norm. It's time we step it up. If you see an injustice, film it, report it. Don't wait for accountability, demand it. Because at the end of the day, they can't ignore us all.
With me now, HLN's Nancy Grace. And Nancy, thank you for coming on. I just want to begin. There's a lot we can talk about. Was there any one thing you were waiting to hear from Officer Wilson that he just didn't say?
Yes. You know, when people say it just doesn't add up, I'll tell you what doesn't add up. These photos. Because I was expecting to see, and we've all seen them, I have looked at them, I have studied them, I was expecting to see his face mangled. And I hear what he's saying, that he was afraid, and this happened, and that happened, but I always go back to the beginning, and the beginning is this. You got an armed man and an unarmed man. The unarmed man is shot 6 to 7 times. One of those may be a reentry. That's why it may be 6 to 7 times. He unloaded many, many more bullets. Why? He doesn't even have a bruise, right? It's red. He's got a red mark. I don't see it. And another thing, when he says, it all happened so fast I couldn't think, then later says, I paused and thought, can I legally shoot him? Listen, that doesn't add up. There's so many things that don't add up. He says he didn't
have other options. That's from the mouth of Officer Wilson.
Look, do you know how many times I've ever sided against a cop? Never. But to me, this is bigger than a badge. And I don't like speaking out against a cop, but this doesn't add up.
Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. It stops today.
This guy right here is forcibly trying to lock somebody up for breaking up a fight.
Everybody standing here, they told you I didn't do nothing.
A fight actually broke out, and Eric jumped up and separated the fight, told him to go across the street. The officers arrived on the scene, basically let the 2 guys that were fighting walk off, and kept all their attention on Eric.
My business, please just leave me alone. I told you the last time, please just leave me alone. Take you left for what? I didn't show anything. I did nothing. We sitting here the whole time, running our business. What are you talking about? I watched you. You watched me do what? Who did I sell cigarette to? To whom?
Not that Richard. There's another guy.
How can you say you see me sell a cigarette and all I did was just break up a fight?
Which means doesn't matter because you said I did it, I did it. No, I didn't. No bag, I got no bag.
From there, 2 seconds later, the sirens were heard. Well, when he grabbed him by his neck, he pulled back to try to bring him to the ground.
The girl came over, gave us a bag and gave us shit.
And within all that time, the guy was still around his neck.
Put your hand behind your back. I can't breathe. 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 I can't breathe.
Then he got up, pushed his face into the floor twice, and then put his knee on top of his face while Eric was telling him he couldn't breathe. And I seen his eyes roll back, and he was foaming from the mouth, and I knew he was gone from there.
Oh, they got it.
I kept telling them, trying to push the issue, like put an oxygen mask on him. And all they did was leave the cuffs on him and search him. And I felt that they treated him wrong, even after the fact that they had him contained.
You watch everything. You know everything.
And jumped out at him for breaking up a fight. He was like the neighborhood dad. Everybody loved him. The old people, young people. They're not supposed to put people in chokeholds.
Shut the f*** up! Shut up!
I've been harassed by cops since it's happened. Anything, like, just don't interact physically, just pull out a camera, and that's all people need. Not only New York is getting abused by police, it's everywhere. I just hope it gives people the courage to not be scared of these people, because it's a lot of he say, she say. Once you have proof, nothing could go against that.
Newly released video shows the moment police officers shot and killed a Cleveland boy. We want to warn you, it is disturbing. Police say 12-year-old Tamir Rice was waving a toy gun at people near a playground. Rookie officer Timothy Lohman and 6-year veteran Frank Garmbach responded to a call. Dean Reynolds shows us how the video raises troubling questions about their 2-second decision to open fire.
The video shows that Tamir Rice was gunned down less than 2 seconds after this police cruiser arrived.
Shots fired, male down, black male, maybe 20, black revolver.
But that was no adult. It was a 12-year-old child, and his weapon, a toy pellet gun that looked like the real thing. Deputy Chief Edward Tomba said they are still investigating why the officers pulled up so close and then opened fire almost immediately. He added Rice ignored 3 commands to put his hands up.
We've got 2 officers that were out there protecting the public that just had to, do something that nobody wants to do.
Rice's parents said the officers were too quick to fire. It is our belief that this situation could have been avoided and that Tamir should still be here with us, they said. Earlier in the video, Rice was seen waving the toy gun. A bystander seated there in the gazebo called 911.
There was a guy there with a pistol, it's probably fake, but he's like pointing it at everybody.
Twice more, the caller questioned whether the weapon was a real gun, but his doubts were never conveyed by the dispatcher.
There's a black male sitting on the swings, so he keeps pulling a gun out of his pants and pointing it at people.
Hands up!
Don't shoot! The shooting has sparked street protests. Community activist Reggie Rucker blames realistic toy guns, but he also says there's a bigger problem.
Why do white men fear young black men? Why? Why in this country do we continue to struggle with this?
The 2 officers involved are on administrative leave pending the department's investigation into the shooting. For CBS This Morning, Dean Reynolds, Cleveland.
It's been a little more than a month since the day 22-year-old John Crawford III was shot and killed by police as he was shopping at a Walmart in Beaver Creek, Ohio. He was unarmed and holding a BB air rifle that was sold at the store when another customer saw him and made a 911 call to the police.
The gentleman walking around with a gun in the store.
That's the call to 911 dispatchers that alerted Beaver Creek police.
Is he got it pulled out?
Yeah, he's like pointing at people. He's like loading it right now.
Police who arrived on the scene said they opened fire after Crawford refused to drop what they thought was a weapon. He later died at a nearby hospital of gunshot wounds, and the coroner's office ruled his death a homicide. Now, just days after the shooting, Ronald Ritchie, an eyewitness to the shooting and reportedly the person on that 911 call, spoke to the press about what he saw.
A black gentleman walking up, holding what looks to be an AR-15, called the police, waving at people, waving at little children, waving the gun.
But a month later, in a recent interview with The Guardian, Ritchie changed his story. While he maintains that Crawford was waving the air rifle around, he told the paper, quote, "At no point did he shoulder the rifle and point it at somebody." The family of John Crawford and their attorneys, after viewing surveillance footage of the shooting, say what they saw in the video not only disproves Ritchie's account of what happened, but proves that the shooting was not justified. Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine has refused their request to release the footage to the public, saying it could jeopardize the possibility of a fair trial. The family has also criticized DeWine's appointment of a special prosecutor who will present evidence in the case to a grand jury later this month. Crawford family attorney Michael Wright is now calling on the Department of Justice to open a civil rights investigation to determine whether the shooting was justified and whether or not race was a factor.
What I told the young people who I met with, we're going to have more conversations like this over the coming months, is this isn't going to be solved overnight. This is something that is deeply rooted in our society, it's deeply rooted in our history, but the two things that are going to allow us to solve it, number one, is the understanding that we have made progress. And so it's important to recognize, as painful as these incidents are, we can't equate what's happening now to what was happening 50 years ago. And if you talk to your parents, grandparents, uncles, they'll tell you that things are better. Not good in some cases, but better. And the reason it's important for us to understand progress has been made is that then gives us hope that we can make even more progress. The second thing that I insist to these young people is we have to be persistent, because typically progress is in steps. It's in increments. When you're dealing with something as deeply rooted as racism or bias in any society, you got to have vigilance, but you have to recognize that it's going to take some time, and you just have to be steady so that you don't give up when we don't get all the way there.
Of the march to Washington, a fight against injustice. Get it? Got it. We gather today on the backs of civil rights workers who gave their lives in the fight for justice, the fight against slavery, the fight against Jim Crow laws, the fight against institutional racism that was designed to oppress, exploit, and to manipulate the rights of law-abiding citizens. Rosie Parks refusing to give up her seat on the bus. James Meredith fighting for education at the University of Mississippi. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who gave his life for fighting injustice. And in this whole community, we have had those who have given their lives to fight against injustice. Pastor Floyd Rose has fought in this city. Pastor Robert Cope have fought in this city to fight against injustice. Injustice is not a choice. It is a requirement of us. Get it?
Got it.